Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of Choir Leader in a Kayak. I'm back on the river, and this week's episode is all about bunnies, birds and breathing, but I do want to start with a quick sing. Bear with, it's probably not the sort of song you'd expect me to sing, but the chat will be worth it. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. That's all I'll give you, because I suspect you know the rest of that lovely hymn that probably was one of the first hymns that I ever learned at primary school. This week's episode, as I say, is all about bunnies, breathing, birthdays and birds. And we've had a really lovely week. The end of July and the beginning of August is all about celebrations for us, and we celebrate birthdays and wedding anniversaries, and it's really an opportunity, isn't it, to reflect on life in general and how far you've come as a parent or within a marriage. And we reflect and we think back to the very first day that we brought our new babies home, or that day that we stood in front of a lot of people and made our vows. And this week we brought home 2 bunnies. My daughter, who's not a little girl, she wanted some bunnies for her birthday, and so that's what we decided to do. In fact, she chose not to have it as her birthday present. She bought them herself. So we brought back 2 gorgeous little bunnies, and we brought them back on a very, very hot day. We had to go and pick them up. We travelled quite a long time around the M25 and picked up these 2 dear little creatures and brought them home, and they were scared and they didn't want to be touched. And my daughter's done lots and lots of research around how to look after the bunnies, and I've watched in awe at her looking after them and researching everything really thoroughly before just making quick decisions around what to do. And it's been beautiful to get to know these 2 little creatures, and in less than a week they are coming up to the front of the cage and hutch, it's called a hutch, not a cage. That sounds awful, doesn't it? They're coming up to the front of the hutch, and they're really happy to see you when you go and see them in the morning. And I have thoroughly enjoyed watching these dear little creatures just going through their day sleeping and washing themselves and leaping around for joy and sometimes being frightened. And did you know that rabbits spend 70% of their time eating? And of course they eat raw food, which is probably why I like them so much, because I eat lots of raw food and I do tend to spend 70% of my time eating and the other 30% singing and doing silly things. And then of course birthdays make us think about our babies and those plans that we had of what we were going to do in the hospital, and how sometimes those plans all go out of the window. Certainly my 2 children were born in very, very different ways. They were, however, both born in incredibly hot summers, and whenever we have these hot spells of weather, I am instantly reminded of those few weeks when I was very heavily pregnant and bringing home tiny, tiny new human beings to look after. And it's scary and there's no roadmap, but tiny things that they do, and we watch them in awe. And it's lovely to look at my 2 who are now very grown up, and it's lovely to watch them looking after these 2 little creatures. And why did I mention birds? Birds and breathing and bunnies, wasn't it? And birthdays. Because again, in times of stress during the last few years, I often look at the birds and watch them flying away and wonder where they're going and wonder what they're doing. So there we are, an episode all about the bees and the hot weather and really just human life and life all around us, all things bright and beautiful. And of course, the one thing that I will say that the bunnies have been doing, which I was a bit surprised about really, is I do have to every now and then go up to them and say, "Excuse me, that is your brother. None of that barking Anyway, have a really lovely week. Celebrate all those small moments in life and celebrate the big ones, the anniversaries, the birthdays, and I'll see you next week. Lots of love. Bye-bye.